Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event. My name is Laura Dillon. I'm with MS Dynamics World, and we're here today for a session all about how RMS support has ended and how will you sell from your warehouse using Dynamics GP. Our presenter today is Maggie Younce with SalesPad, and it's great to have her here with us today. So as we get started, please know that we do welcome your questions. You can enter them in at any time during her presentation in the Q&A box that you'll see on the right side of your event window. And I know that Maggie will be leaving time at the end to get to as many of them as she can. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to Maggie to get us started.
Great. Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Maggie Younce. I'm a sales engineer here at SalesPad. I'm going to be talking about our counter sales module today and how you can use that instead of using RMS since support has ended. So I'm going to go through just some of the functionality with that. Just a couple of things to cover first, just a few bullet points. So we can do cash and credit card with counter sales. I'm going to show both of those options. We do also allow for discounts, special pricing. We have a lot of different pricing options in SalesPad. So if you're familiar at all with SalesPad, or if you're not familiar at all with SalesPad, I'm gonna go through some of those options as well. I will talk about the integrated payment processing that is with Notice. So we use PayFabric with Notice for that. We do also have built-in end-of-day reporting for your different cash registers, stores and drawers, and your POS stations. We also do have a built-in workflow, so it is something that you can easily manipulate, and I'm going to talk more about that once we get into the actual sales order processing. And of course, you always have inventory visibility inside of SalesPad. So going through that list there, I do want to mention, so SalesPad, how SalesPad works is we sit within the GP database. So anything that you do in SalesPad, whether that's creating a new customer or creating a new order or doing some kind of inventory transaction, all of that happens in real time in GP. So you don't have to worry about a different application syncing at a certain time or duplicating any data. What you do in SalesPad happens immediately in real time in GP. So when it comes down to the end-of-day reporting and the counter sales transactions and the inventory visibility, all of that is real. Everything that you see comes out of GP, and we read and write back to those same tables. So I always like to mention that's how SalesPad works, especially when it comes to the counter sales module as well. Here are a few different options for some accessories that we do support with the counter sales module. So we have a couple of chip and pin readers here for the credit cards, which again we do integrate with Notice PayFabric. So I'm going to be showing that option today as well. But we have the wired version of the chip and pin reader, and then we have the wireless version as well. So that would be connected via Bluetooth. You can use the counter sales module within a terminal server environment as well. So if you're accessing GP from a terminal server, you can do the same thing with SalesPad. It can be from a terminal server, or you can also do a local installation on your PC at your counter. Couple of other things. So we do have a signature pad, so you can take signatures, cash drawer. The cash drawer automatically pops out if it is a cash payment. And then, of course, the receipt printer. And the scanner here, so I'm going to be using a tethered scanner today. Of course, you're not in the room with me, so you won't actually be able to see it, but you'll hear it as I'm scanning my barcodes. So that is something else that we do support with the tethered scanner. So with that said, I will start with the demonstration now. And again, like Laura said, if you do have any questions along the way, feel free to type those in. I'll try to get to as many of those at the end as I can. I don't expect the actual demonstration to take too much of your time today, but I'll go ahead and start that. All right, so this is SalesPad Desktop. This is our flagship product. This is where counter sales is stored. I always like to note that I am logged in as an admin user, so I have access to everything. And you might see a lot of things on the screen that you may not use, and that's completely fine. We can turn off the ability to do pretty much anything in SalesPad and any of the modules that you wouldn't be using. If it's strictly counter sales, which is of course what we're focusing on today, you can even untab your different windows, which I'm going to go ahead and do this. And now we just see the counter sales module. This is typically what we recommend your customers to do or yourselves to do if you are using the counter sales module. That way you don't have to have access to any of the other modules as well. But this is the screen that we would start with. What I'm going to do first for the demonstration is just run through a very quick transaction. And it's going to go by pretty fast because that's typically how it should be. If you have a retail storefront or you have people picking things up in your store and you want to be able to run your transactions smooth and quickly, that's going to be the best way to do it. So I'm going to run through one really quickly, and then I'm going to go back and talk about all of the different processes and options along the way. So right here we're on the sales entry tab. So I don't have a document number yet. We'll get a document number once I save it. But for the item, we can use the tethered scanner. And I've just scanned an item using the barcode. Of course, if you don't have barcodes on your items, you can always manually enter your items as well. So I'll go ahead and scan another item here. So as soon as I scan those items in, it'll put the quantities available. We do have other options in SalesPad to automatically increment by scan. So if you wanted to scan multiple items or if you wanted to scan once and update the quantity, I'll go into that in a little more detail, but going forward, we do have hotkeys or shortcuts on the keyboard. So you can just click F12 and it will bring you to the checkout screen here. So on the left panel, we have the payment options. We could do the Pay Fabric credit card, which is done through Notice. We can do cash or check as well. So let's just say this order is $39.01. So by default, it's going to pull the amount of the document in here. Let's say that the customer is paying with cash 40 bucks. Go ahead and save that. And what it's going to do is it's going to tell me that I have 99 cents and change that I have to give back. And if it is a cash payment, when I do click F12 on my keyboard, it will automatically pop open the cash drawer. So just as it would if you were at a grocery store or other storefront, it's going to automatically pop that open if it is a cash payment. And that's it. It'll use your checkbook that you have set up in GP or your multiple checkbooks. And then at the top here, I'm going to click Submit. And what it's going to do is it's going to move my document into a specific queue. And I'm going to talk about the different types of queues that we can set up in workflow. But that's pretty much it. After your document is done and that document has moved into a specific queue, it takes you back to the main screen here where then you can move on to the next customer. So to go into a little bit more detail here, the Sales Entry tab stores where we put our item numbers in. We have the ability to view our inventory by clicking on the ellipsis here, and it'll pull up our inventory search card. So if we wanted to look up, for instance, if a customer is asking, how much of this item do you have in stock? And I'll expand this for us here. Well, we can see in all of the different warehouses that we have set up, so these are the warehouses you have set up in GP. If you wanted to say, well, in store number 4, we have 105 5 available or something like that. So you can always see the inventory levels that you have available for those items if the customer is asking. This is also a really great way to search for your items and easily add them to your document. If you don't have barcodes on your items, this is a great way to do it. So if whoever is taking the order doesn't have a barcode to scan and they're not sure what the item is called, they can always search for it within the item search here. You can double click it and it's just going to add that item right onto the line here. We can also see at the top, depending on which store or warehouse or site that you have set up in GP, depending on what you have set up there, it will also tell us the availability. So we can see up here, and it might be a little bit small, but we can see up here it says we have 324 of these green phones available. So you'll always be able to see that based on the warehouse that you have selected. So for instance, I am currently using my main warehouse location, and I can see that here to the right. Now, one thing to note about what you see on the right, which is within the Summary tab, this is pulling my document property header information. So if you have a sales rep that would be getting commission based off of a sale, or you have payment terms set up for a specific customer, you'll see that here. Now, you can default to a walk-in customer. So you can set up a walk-in customer in GP and use that walk-in customer for all of your storefront or your counter sales. But I will say there is an option if you wanted to do a customer search. If they are a current customer and they come in all the time, or they're picking something up that they ordered previously, you can always do a customer search as well instead of using your default customer walk-in. And you also don't have to default to a walk-in customer. If you set up every customer that comes into your store, you also have the ability to do that as well. So there is also a new customer tab. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'm actually going to clear this out, and I'm going to cancel the current sale. And let's say that a current customer walks in. So somebody that might have an on-account with you, or somebody that comes in frequently and they have an account in your GP database. We're going to see a lot of different screens here when we click on the customer search. This customer search results screen, we just do a blank search. It'll tell me I haven't entered any search criteria, which is fine. I'll go ahead and continue. And this is pulling up every customer that I have in the GP database. I can also add in additional columns. So if I right-click here, I have what we call a column chooser. So if we wanted to search for a customer, maybe not necessarily by customer name or email or phone number, but we wanted to search by city. Or we wanted to search by, we can even search by payment terms. You can search by any of these different fields. So these are all fields that we can pull in from the customer card. We can even just pull in the contact person as well. So these are all of the different customers and all of the contact information. So you can add really as many columns in here as you'd like. You don't have to, so you can take these out. You don't really need to see payment terms then. And let's say Bob walks in the door. And the customer service rep or whoever is taking the order searches for Bob this way. They can double click on the Aaron Fitz electrical customer where Bob works, and you can pull up all of the documents for that particular customer. So these are all open and historical documents. This is also a great way for you to create a return. So if you needed to create a return off of a posted invoice, you can create a return by finding that specific invoice. If they have the receipt for that or the order number, you can always search for your sales document numbers or your items even. Anywhere where you see a field that is blank like these, you can scan into those. So if they did come in with a receipt, you can scan the receipt. You can even scan the item number if it does have a barcode on it, if they're returning it. And then we can find the invoice that that document is attached to. So if I click on this, now it has gone to from my customer search screen to my sales entry screen. And now I can see over here to the right, we have the customer information now for Aaron Fitz Electrical, for Bob Fitz. He came in, and now he can go ahead and purchase what he was going to be purchasing. So let's say that Bob is purchasing this item, and he's going to be purchasing 3 of them. So it's going to update all of my information here to the right. And again, we do have all of the information from the customer card populating here as well. One thing that I have not mentioned yet, if you are using Dynamics GP, you might be familiar with the user-defined field functionality. In SalesPad, we can add as many user-defined fields as you'd like, so we're not limited to the handful or so that GP allows. In SalesPad, we can add in additional fields. So if there's something around the customer that you want to be able to track, or if there's something specific to counter sales documents in general, or anything really that is business specific for you, you can easily add user-defined fields to this screen here. Pretty easy to do that if you just right-click and you can customize your layout, so you can add in additional fields, make things required if needed. The options are really kind of endless. So you can customize the layout, you can have different screens. It doesn't have to look exactly like this. A couple of other quick things to note too. So I am going into a lot of detail just for this one item here, but the document properties at the top, we can see that I have an invoice for this. And the reason I'm starting with an invoice instead of an order is just preference. So you don't have to start with an invoice. In fact, you can start with a quote if you want to. But I found that starting with an invoice and having a very, very quick workflow is best for counter sales. You want it to be a quick and easy process, but it also depends on your business. So maybe you don't want to start with an invoice. Maybe you want to have a workflow in SalesPad that allows you to move your documents through different queues and set up different rules. Maybe for instance, for a brand new customer that walks in the door and we want to put that customer through a credit check in the system. We can create an order for them instead of an invoice, and we can move that order to a credit check queue or something along those lines. The options there are pretty endless with the different workflows that you can set up, but I've just found personally that something quick and easy is just the best way to go. But again, it does really depend on your business. So that's kind of the long answer of why I'm starting with an invoice. And I did create a specific type of invoice in GP for my counter sales. And I can see up here at the top, I do have the ability to change that. So if I needed to make a return, or if I needed to start with an order instead of an invoice, I can do that as well. Each one of those document types can have a different workflow attached to it. So that is something to note. So I've gone ahead and I've added my item here, and I have 3 of these now, and I have my document properties here to the right. I can click F12 to check out, or I can click this checkout tab. Either way, it'll take me to the same screen. And once it does take me to the screen here, it tells me what my total is, what my balance is. Also tells me my amount remaining in red up here at the top. Now, instead of doing cash or check this time, I'm actually going to do a credit card option. So if it is cash or check, again, if you click F12, or you click Submit up here at the top, it'll automatically pop open that cash drawer. If they are going to be paying with a credit card, this does use the Notice Pay Fabric integration. And at this point, we do have the ability to do authorizations, charges, and then depending on your accounting structure, you might be doing payments or deposits as well. So you have all of those different options in SalesPad for payments. You can also turn those off. So if you don't want to do deposits and you don't want to do authorizations, and for your counter sales, you just want to do new charges, we see that pretty often. So you can just click on the new charge button. And at this point, when I pull this up, it's going to pull up the Pay Fabric window. So it's communicating to Notice through an API. So any credit card information that you put into this screen, whether it's manually or with a chip and PIN reader that you're using, it'll populate this information here and it will be sent to Notice. So we do not store any credit card information in the database, which keeps it completely PCI compliant. So you don't have to worry about doing that. You can save your customers' credit cards, but the only option is through tokenization, and you see the last 4 digits. So Aaron Fitz Electrical walked in, ordered 3 green phones. He owes $192.45. He's been in pretty often, and we save his credit card here, so we can always click that, and it'll populate that information. So if you are interested in using Notice, there are a lot of back-end options, different levels of securities, things that you can require or not if needed. But that is just one thing to note, is that we can save those through Notice, and again, that is completely PCI compliant. If it is a true walk-in customer, of course, you're not going to have that wallet information. They're just going to put their credit card in just like you would anywhere else at a retail shop, and it'll automatically populate all of this information from the credit card. It will automatically pull the transaction amount of whatever the document total is. So if you needed to change this manually, you can. I'm going to go ahead and click Process Transaction. And it tells me that the transaction has been approved. So after a couple of seconds here, it's going to populate this line, tells me that we paid using this credit card ending in 1111. It was a Visa. We have a transaction amount on here as well. We can see the amount committed here. And then we can go ahead and submit. And again, submitting it is going to forward this document from a new counter sales invoice into a counter sales posting queue. So my workflow in my demo environment is very, very simple. I only have 2 queues. I have my counter sales invoice, and then I have my counter post queue. But again, you can really make that as robust as you'd like. You can go through credit check queues, or if it's over a specific amount, or the credit card is declined. There are a lot of different options. If the customer wants the items to be shipped, maybe you want it to go through a pick, pack, ship queue. It doesn't have to be something quick like this. It can be as robust as you want to make that. So I'm going to click OK, and again, it's going to bring me back to my sales entry, and my next walk-in customer, they can go ahead and purchase whatever they're purchasing and pay with cash or credit card or checks. I don't know if I mentioned that before. We can use checks in SalesPad as well. If you do want to take their information, maybe they want their receipts emailed instead of printed, you can click on the new customer, and we have a lot of different customer properties here. If you want to make some of these fields required, we can. But you can set up a new customer just as you would in GP. You can fill in as many fields as you'd like. Obviously, the more information you have for that customer, the better. But you can set up a customer this way as well. So they do walk in, you want to take all of their information and be able to report on that, this would be a great way to do that. Another quick thing, oh, and that's an example. I made those all required fields. I'm just going to use the current customer. So if you do want to make fields required, which is what you just saw, I have a few required fields in my system. It'll automatically pop up a box letting you know that those fields are required. So you will have to fill those out if you want to fill out a new customer form. I mentioned right in the beginning that we do have different pricing options in SalesPad. So by default, we will pull in your GP standard pricing or your GP extended pricing into SalesPad. So we'll just use whatever you have set up. However, on top of that, we can add promotions, sales document promotions, things like buy one, get one free, or coupon codes as well. So we can automatically create random coupon codes that can be used per customer or to a group of customers. We can also do customer special pricing. So if you have a current customer that walks in and they get a special price for buying a specific item, we can use customer special pricing that way in SalesPad. There are a lot of different pricing options. So, I mean, we can go even as granular as if you buy a certain weight of an item, they can get a discount on that. So we can take a lot of that item information or customer information into account when setting up all of the different pricing options. And they all work within our counter sales module. There are a couple of other things too. So when you add an item, you notice it's pretty quick. I can just scan my item, check out, and go. But we do have a very extensive list of actions for this document. And again, we can turn this off. It might look like a ton of information, and it is. I do like to show that we do have a lot of different options just from the counter sales module. So if you needed to use any of these different types of plugins in SalesPad, you can absolutely do that from the counter sales module. I won't go into detail on any of these because we would be here all day long, but if you are interested or if any of these catch your eye, definitely let us know and we can answer some questions about that. But one thing that I do want to note, and I know this has probably been a lot of information so far, but if I right-click in here, I can go ahead. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of that, and I'm going to continue. So once I exit out of that, it brings me back to my main SalesPad screen. I want to mention the store and drawer capabilities. So at the top up here, we have these little wheels. We can set up specific stores and different drawers, or meaning cash registers, pop-outs, whatever you're going to be using for that. And we can set those up so based on the end of day report, we can see how much cash is left in those drawers, how much cash is left in each store as well. You can have as many cash registers per store as you'd like. You can have as many stores as you'd like as well. And then you can assign specific users to those stores and drawers. What's nice about that is you do have the ability to lock the screen. So let's say that your counter sales user is, they came in for the day, they logged in, maybe they have to leave for lunch, or they have to just leave for one reason or another. They can lock the screen. And so when you lock the screen, it's going to pull up this window, and it's just requiring my password now. So if I needed to make any changes or I needed somebody else to log in, this would be the way to do it. And then I can just enter my password, and it'll log me back in. So I can't do anything if my screen is locked. So that's one of the capabilities of the store and drawer. And just so you can see what that looks like, there is a store setup option inside of SalesPad within the setup and utilities. And this is where you can set up all of your different stores. You can define a default walk-in customer, which is what I have done in my system. You can assign specific users also to each of the stores or drawers. So whatever I have highlighted here, it will change, and you can see who my assigned users are for that. And then you can also assign any users that are currently unassigned. So if you have somebody new, you can just create a new user in SalesPad. Licensing in SalesPad is concurrent. So if you have anybody that is, if you have, let's say, 5 different stores, but only 3 of them will be logged in at once, you would really only need 3 licenses, but then you can have as many users set up as you'd like. So that's an example of the licensing. And so I just wanted to show this option because it can be a little bit more granular, and it works really well with the end of day report. So if you wanted to keep track of any of the cash flow going in and out of your system, setting up the stores and drawers for that is a great idea. One other very quick thing too before we end is within the counter sales module I was showing when I click the submit button, my document is going into a counter post queue. We can see all of those documents if we go into our sales monitor module. This might be something more utilized by a manager or somebody who's going to be just checking things on the back end. But you can see all of the invoices. Now let's look. I'm not going to be looking at my EDI documents here, but let's say that we have all of these new counter invoices, and here are all of the invoices in my counter post queue. So I can then pull up that queue in GP at the end of the day and do a batch posting of all of those invoices. So this just gives me that high level visibility, and this does refresh every 30 seconds. So again, from a back-end perspective or from a managerial perspective, it's nice to have this sales monitor so you can see what's going on. You can also break this down by the different stores or even be as granular as seeing the drawers as well. So you'll always have a high-level overview of what's going on in the stores, who is doing what, when they're doing it. We keep audits of everything in SalesPad, so you never really have to worry about what's happening. And I think that's probably about it for the counter sales module. I know we covered a lot of ground, and I'm sure there are some questions. But again, if there are questions, feel free to type them in, and I will try to answer them as they come in.
Thanks, Maggie. Appreciate that. We do have a few questions that have come in, and I'll read them to you, and you can take them as they come in. So the first one says, could you use PayLink in a case where a customer unknowingly is on hold and sends an employee to do a will call who doesn't have a company credit card, so you want to send a PayLink to the customer?
The answer is yes. Yep. So that's something that can be done in workflow. We do support PayLink in SalesPad. So an example of that would be if they don't have a credit card, they don't have any way to pay, but you want to send a PayLink, you can do that just by clicking on Submit. And doing that will use your workflow. We have a plugin in workflow for the PayLink. So as long as we have their email address or cell phone, they will be able to receive that PayLink and pay their invoice.
Great. And then here's another question. Can you make them a new customer default to credit only?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you are creating a new customer in SalesPad, especially in the counter sales module, absolutely you can make them credit only.
Is there a list of all available plugins available?
Ooh, That's a good question. We may have something on our support page, but I might need to get back to you on that. I'd have to double check, and if we don't, I can send over a list of all of the different plugins for that.
Okay, well, and you'll have the information on who asked that to follow up with them directly after this. We'll get that to you in the final report.
Okay,
and then here's
perfect.
another question that says, can you show going into GP and showing the batch?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, let me pull up this, let me pull up GP really quick here. All right, give me 1 second, it's logging in now. Yeah, and that is really one of the nicest things about SalesPad is that it all does happen in real time in GP. All right, so we pull up sales batches. You can ignore this part of it, but the batch ID here, we can just do a search and we can see not only all of the GP batches, but we can see all of the SalesPad batches as well. So they'll all end up in the same place. And now we can see the count post batch. And then we can see the batch total as well, all of the transactions and everything that's available there. Click on transactions. We searched for any of those documents, and if you needed to post those individually, you can absolutely do that. Otherwise, yeah, you can use the batch entry here and post that entire counter post batch. Let me know if that doesn't answer the question. Let me know, and I can go into more detail. But that's where you can pull up that batch in GP.
Okay, let's see. Here's another question for you, Maggie. Is it possible to create various products, such as assembly kits or matrix items?
Yeah, yep. So I'll hop back in here. Yeah, so you can use any of those options. So if you are using the item matrices plugin in SalesPad, let's say, we see that pretty often actually for clothing. But yeah, so the item matrix, you can pull that up in the counter sales module. So you have, let's say you have small, medium, and large, and red and green for your shirts. You can then choose all of those different options using the item matrix. It'll just pop up a screen on here, and then you can choose all of those instead of scanning a barcode or any of those options. And then, of course, you do have kits or packages set up in GP, or if you wanted to set those items up in SalesPad, you have the ability to do that in SalesPad as well. So if you add a kit or a package onto a counter sales line item, it will act as if you're adding that specifically to any other type of document. So we do support any and all of those options.
Okay, let's see. Can SalesPad run loyalty systems for customers, or is it possible to customize that?
Sorry, Laura, could you repeat that question?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yep.
It says, can SalesPad run loyalty systems for customers, or is it possible to customize that?
I'm kind of getting a little, sorry, I'm going to ask you to repeat that one more time. Can we add, sorry.
Loyalty systems for customers?
Oh, loyalty systems. I'm sorry. Okay. It must be one of those days. Yes. Yeah, so like a reward. I think it's me. Yeah, so we've had a few customers customize some things for rewards programs inside of SalesPad. So we did a customization for like a rewards card that you can scan, and it'll pop up the customer's name and all the information in SalesPad. Or if there's something more specific, if they like a punch card, we've done all sorts of different customizations, so that is one thing that we've heard pretty often. So we do have the ability to customize that in SalesPad.
Okay, good. Let's see. And here's a question. I don't know if you can do this or not, but someone's asking if you can do an example walkthrough of an order from beginning to end.
Yeah, a regular counter sales order, I'm assuming, or are we looking for? I'll do a regular counter sales order, which is kind of what we were doing, but it's going to be the same process. I'll just start it actually with an order though instead of an invoice. And one thing that I mentioned before is that each different document ID or document type can have its own workflow. So my order workflow might be a little bit different than my invoice workflow. But I've just changed that from a counter invoice to a counter order. And I'm going to go ahead and add my white fudge twist on here. And then afterwards, I can check out, which is just pressing F12. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but you actually can completely bypass the checkout option. So if they are a customer that's on account or kind of going back to the pay link option, if they're not going to be paying right then and there, you can completely bypass the checkout option and then just click submit instead. And so what that'll do is it'll look to see if there's a payment. If there's not a payment, it might move it into a specific batch or queue. So I'm going to go ahead and submit here. And then that's it. It's just moved my document wherever it might go in workflow. And as somebody who would be taking the counter sales orders or invoices, they may or may not be the same person that's going to be posting in GP, but whatever your posting schedule is, you can then post whatever batch your document might be at the end of the day. So if it starts with an order, you can always transfer it to an invoice in SalesPad later in the day or later in the week or whenever that item might be shipping out if you don't have something in stock. Or you can transfer that order to an invoice also in GP. So you have the option to do it either way. Transferring documents in SalesPad is not going to happen from the counter sales module. It's just going to happen from our regular sales order entry screen. So if you are using the order option, a document ID, for your counter sales and you need to later transfer those to invoices, you can do that in SalesPad using sales batch processing, which will transfer your orders to an invoice, or you can also do that in GP as well.
Great. These are terrific questions. Thanks very much, everyone, for all the interaction. A couple more questions here for you, Maggie. One is there a gift card option?
Yes. Yep. So we can do gift cards in SalesPad. I don't have an example of that in my demo environment, but if you do want to see something like that, you can definitely let me know and I can hop on another call and we can go through the gift card option. But yes, we do have the ability to use gift cards in SalesPad.
Okay, and are touch screen monitors supported?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. So SalesPad, I will say this, SalesPad the counter sales module has to run on a Windows device. I don't know for sure about the touch screen, but it can be used on a tablet like a Surface. So we do have the option for that. I will also mention that we do have also a mobile application where you can also take orders and pay for orders, and that would be something used on an Android or an iOS device as well. But I'm going to have to double check on the touchscreen abilities for the counter sales module.
Okay, no problem. Well, I think that is the last question that's come in. Maggie, thanks so much for taking the time to answer all of those and for your really good demo and explanation of that module. We did record today's event, everybody, and we'll be making that available to you shortly. And I think we'll just wrap up there. As you're exiting this event today, be on the lookout for a very brief survey that will pop up. It should only take a few seconds to complete it, but the feedback does help us here at MS Dynamics World, and it helps our presenters too. So if you wouldn't mind taking a second to do that, that would be great. Maggie, thanks once again for participating today, and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your time.